Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about How It Feels to Be Colored in Me, written by Zora Neale Hurston. Now, before I go into summary analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. In this work by Zora Neale Hurston, we really get in a very interesting way to look at race. Within this work, Zora Neale Hurston introduces us to her hometown where she grows up. And right off the bat, what you learn about her is that she lives in a community where it's pretty much all black people that live in this town. And white people, they often come driving by. Now, the thing is, the adults around this time, everybody's well aware of racism and how the world works and how black people were slaves and how they were oppressed and how they had to fight for everything that they have. It was always a fight to get your rights. And so her elders, the adults of the town, whenever they see her talking to white people, they always told her to watch out, or they always pulled her from the conversations that she had with white people. Zora Neale Hurston, as a kid, she tells us on the essay that she's on the front porch whenever the cars go by and there's white people in them. She dances for them and they'll give her money. And the things, like, as a child, she doesn't think she doesn't think about what's going on and how significant what's happening is. But things like she's welcoming, she's friendly to everybody. She would dance and sing and just be a child for everybody. But she doesn't understand, as a child, she didn't understand how complex race is and how complex color is, and the history of skin pigmentation in America. And so you can see how naive she is at the beginning of the essay as a child. She tells us that she loves to sit in the front porch, watch the cars go by. She notices that the white people never really stay in her town. It's only black people that stay there, and the white people only drive by. And sometimes she'll start conversations with them, try to be nice to them, and they're nice to her. They're not doing anything bad to her, but her elders know better, and they kind of like always pull her away from the white people. Now the thing is, Zora Neale Hurston, she tells us that she didn't know that she was colored or black until she left her town. And that might not make any sense, but it does make a lot of sense. If you're a black person, you understand what that means. Because until you leave, let's say you're coming from a country that's majority black, or you're coming from a part of the country that's majority black, or a city that's majority black, you don't know that you're black until you leave that place, right? You don't know that you're black or what comes with being black in certain places until you leave your hometown or where you were born, that that has a very strong black population. And the thing is, like, Zora Neale Hurston, she lives her childhood in this black town. She's not going to face racism with black people because they're all black in the town, and they all get along in the town as they can. And so she only understands what it means to be black in America, or what it means to be colored, once she leaves her home. And this is kind of the thing. It doesn't only apply to black people. It applies to anybody who's from a different culture. Once you leave your country, or you leave your town, or you leave your state, your city, where you're around, I guess, the people that are most similar to you, or the people that are the same color as you, that's when you notice that you're different. And she tells us that once she leaves her town, other white people tell her that you're black, and that this is what that happened to your people, that your people were slaves, and that your people had to fight for everything, and you're reminded of that constantly. You're reminded of things that were taken away from you constantly, and how for centuries you weren't even thought of as a human. Your ancestors weren't thought of as a human. But the thing is, like, Zora Neale Hurston, she says that it's too bad for people who are racist, or it's too bad for people who don't like black people, because she's a great person. She kind of tells us within the essay that it's okay to be black, that she is well and dandy. She has no problem with being black. There's nothing that you can take away from her. Superman has nothing on her. She's living her best life. She loves being black. She loves being who she is. And she said that it's really it's sad for other people or other races who don't want to get to know her because she's such a great person and she's just a great being to get to know, and they're just missing out if they don't want to know her as a black person, as a woman of color. And it's very fascinating this point of view because she says you only really know that you're black when you're thrown against a sharp white background. And one thing that really reminds me of this is when you look at Serena Williams, the famous tennis player, and what she had to go through when she was going into the tennis world, which is a sport that is really dominated by white players. And so she was like this one black person that was extremely good in tennis, and she was new on the scene. And a lot of people thought about race. A lot of people said there are calls that were made against her because of her race. And when you look at the statistics, when you look at what happens, it really looks like it's just because she's black that certain calls were called upon her when she was playing in the early 2000s. So, Zora Neale Hurston Kyle talks about you notice that you're black in certain situations or in places where there are no other black people. In America, black people have stayed in certain cities and, they don't step foot in certain cities in America. There are certain places where even though, you can go wherever you want in the country, even though it's a free country, even though we're all citizens, we all can do whatever we want. There's certain places, there's some like towns that's not on the map that there are some towns you can't find on Google Maps, the towns where you have to go behind some hill somewhere in America that, even though it's a free country, if you're black, you really don't want to go to that town because if something happens to you, if you go missing, they can call as many 911 calls as they want. It's going to be tough to find you because you might not be liked for your color in that, Google Mapless town that nobody can find somewhere in America. And there's a bunch of small little unknown towns all over the country in America. And as a black person, you can go there if you're brave enough. You can go there, but there's some places where stick to the big cities, stick to New York, Detroit, or those big cities where there are cameras, and you can always be close to another person of color. So it's when you're thrown into that sharp white background. And Zora Neale Hurston goes into it. She tells us that there's some black people, and this is another part that's very important that she goes into. She says that a lot of black people, you have certain black people that only focus on the past, that this was taken from them, this was taken from them. She kind of says it's the past. Yes, slavery happened. Yes, all that took place, but I can't dwell on that. I have to move forward. Yes, we have to fight for our rights and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, she knows that she's a human being. She's not going to focus on her color and how unfair life is to her, because you kind of get the feeling at the beginning of the essay that the black people in her hometown, they're kind of like stuck on the past and how unfair it is to live in a country where your ancestors were slaves. And there's a lot to that, because if you think about it, black people received their civil rights in 1968. That's when black people received their civil rights in America. Before that, you weren't going to find that many black millionaires. You're not going to find black businessmen, black doctors, black lawyers. You're not going to find wealthy black people because you didn't have rights. You couldn't vote. You couldn't do anything, and your ancestors were slaves. So basically, all the black people of today, they're working from the ground up, building industries, building wealth. There's no old money. Right? When we think about old money that is, family wealth, when you think about families that have been established in America since its birth, right? Families that have created their wealth over hundreds of years, rich white families that, give birth to kids that have automatic trust funds, families that are wealthy to the point where they can't count their own money. You don't have black people that are wealthy like that in America, or even in the Western world, because we haven't had centuries to build wealth, to invest, and to be movers of industry. It's just not there. And so to exist in a world like that, where you're reminded of your slavery, you're reminded of the unfairness. You can understand why a lot of black people feel as if they got the short end of the stick, because their ancestors never had a chance to build for their kids or for the future of their people, I guess. And so there's a lot to be said about this essay, a lot to say about feelings. But one thing I think that you really need to take away from this is that there's two ways you can look at race and color, or you could look at how it feels to be colored. Me, you can either be the black person that focuses on the past, that focuses on slavery and how much things were bad and how much things were taken away from you and your ancestors, or you can be a person of right now and see what can you do now to build wealth, to build a name for yourself, and to just be a human being. And there's one thing that Zora Neale Hurston says within this essay that's really heartwarming, is that she doesn't have to face with that shadow in the closet, with that skeleton in the closet of thinking about how America was built, because we know for a fact that for centuries you had African Americans, black people on plantations, not getting paid, being killed, being forced to work, forced labor, making America rich. So if you think about it, America was built on the backs of black people. They were built on the backs of slaves. The slaves had to work the plantations for free. So they didn't earn any of that. And black people, if you really think about it, they're closer to the land than other people are, because for centuries, during slavery, they had to till the land. They had to take care of the land. They had to work on farms for free. They had to sleep on the farm. They didn't get the comfortable houses and the comfortable luxuries of the farm. They had to sleep on the farm, work hard, and fight for this country, fight in wars. So black people are Americans. They are here. They helped build the country. They're not going anywhere, and they belong here as much as everybody else, because it was on the ancestors of black people's back that America was built, and they built it for free. They weren't paid to build it. And so Zora Neale Hurston kind of says that, she never has to look in her closet to think that, I use this group of people, or, her race or her color didn't have to use this group of people to build the country. And that, you don't have to think about that whole, using other people for forced labor thing. So there's a lot here in terms of analysis. It's I think the essay is encouraging. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more you can discover in it. But the sense of the fact that Zora Neale Hurston was naive at the beginning. She's not focused on slavery. She's not focused on the unfairness. She's focused on herself as a human being, as a person, and who she can be rather than who she can't be because of her past, because of her ancestors. And that is, it's heartwarming, it's bright, and it tells you a lot about where this country was in the past, where it came from, and where it can go for people of color. So that's my summary analysis of this essay. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment, and I'll see you guys in my next video.